Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
Hello and welcome to the new and improved Corona Cinema podcast. I think I'm going to call it Season 2 as the nice ring to it. We've shaped up the format, tried to make it a bit more fresh. Kind of the podcast was born out of lockdown and we kind of just threw it together as a bit of a simple one. Try to reform how we approach things, try to make it feel a bit more natural, a bit more engaging for the audience. So yeah, as always, it's me, Leon Waite, your host. And same guests, we got Mason, Matty, and Ross. Guys, how are we feeling about this new format?
I was running out of things to post on Instagram, to be honest.
That is true, actually.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Mason?
Got a new logo, so I think we're on the right track.
Oh yeah, the new logo. Yeah, that was the other part that was looking a bit shabby after these 12 months. Yeah, shaking it up, giving it a bit more fresh color. Matty, what are you thinking about this?
I made that, but sure.
Yeah, you're a video editor, not a graphic designer. Mason's Photoshop expert. Matty, how are you feeling about the new format? Get to review new films as we go back to the cinema, which we all did this weekend, apart from Mason.
I'm looking forward to like having proper arguments now, so I can have a bit more like a back and forth rather than like talking for a bit, stopping, and then Mason says something that's like really stupid, but I can't go back to it because we've already moved on. So this time we can like call him out and stuff. So
you just want to argue with me about Tenet?
Yes, I do. I want to revisit Tenet, please.
I'm gonna rewatch Tenet at some point.
Don't do it. It's bad.
It's not bad.
No, it's not. It was never bad.
Let's stop talking now because it's going to turn into an argument.
But yeah, it was a bit rigid. The old format is kind of like, yeah, Leon introduced. I'm not even gonna do like all the long like list of cars. I'll do like the one sentence summary of the films we talk about. Not go into the cast and everything. Like, who cares? Like, yeah, just keep it shorter. Let's go. Let's zip zap. Let's go. And instead of just going back to me asking a question to someone, they talk for 2 minutes. To come back, yeah, want to make it a bit more fluid. So that's the purpose behind the rebrand.
Yeah, you adding me when I talked for 13 minutes on Prometheus? You just want to cut that kind of stuff out now?
Yeah, potentially, yeah. Get a bit more tit for tat. Like, yeah, Matty says something, and Ross has come in with a solid piece of banter, and then Mason flies in and adds a little comment there. Yeah, it's all going to be popping off. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. So how was Ross, Matty? Went back to the cinema this way. When's the last time you guys went? I went. So I've been. This is the third time since the pandemic. When was the last time you guys went?
It's the third time for me as well since they've opened. But I've only seen horror films because I went to see. What did we see? The first one I saw was The Conjuring. No, the first one I saw was Saw. Spiral. Then I saw The Conjuring and The Quiet Place. Yeah, that's what I've seen. But we got our Odeon Limitless cards now, so.
Well, so you hadn't been since the pandemic, other than this weekend or this week?
Yeah, when it opened, like for a little bit during the pandemic, I saw American Pickle. It was it's like terrible film, but like it was just on during like there was just something. I just wanted to go to the cinema, so I watched American Pickle, which wasn't even worth going. Thinking back to it now, but you know, being at the cinema is just like a different experience. I'm glad we're back. I've only seen horror films so far, but you know. I've got the Odeon Limitless card. It's only $9.99 at the moment. Why not? I'll go see Godzilla vs. Kong, Fast and Furious 9 when that comes out, or 900 or whatever it is. You know, I'll just go watch everything now. Like, might as well. Do you know what I mean?
Fast 9 looks really funny. With this, I saw the the funny thing about this weekend was, I don't know, because it's been that long. Every trailer, I was like, yeah, I want to check that out. Whereas normally I'd be like. No, I'll be more selective. Literally every single trailer I saw, probably like, I don't know, 8 or 9 in total. Every film, I was like, oh yeah.
Was there any you saw where you're actually like, oh, I actually cannot see that one?
I knew, you know, Freaky, that film with the body swap, Vince Vaughn.
Oh yeah.
I knew about that already. That's the Happy Death Day director. So I was already like, yeah. I reckon that'd be good. Mate, what about you? Have you been cinema before this week?
No, this is the first time I've been.
Bad
You
Boys
know
for
what?
Life.
You what?
Since Bad Boys for Life.
Oh sugar, yeah, I went to Bad Fall's Life. Was that when? I don't even know when
That was pre-pandemic, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's quite funny. That was the last film I saw in cinema, and I didn't even know it. And well, no offense to Bad Boys for Life, but it wasn't the best film I've ever seen. That third one. Yeah, it's good being back because I don't really go that much because I never had the cards for Unlimited, but because it's so cheap here, it's only like a fiver to go to the cinema. Um, I think for these films that we watched this week, especially having that kind of like everyone actually being quiet, apart from a few like people behind me fuming, and like being like in that kind of like surrounded, like because everything's dark and I don't know, I'm just describing what a cinema is. Everyone knows what a cinema is, but like that kind of like engrossed experience, like we haven't really had that for so long. Um, and like comparing it to like watching a film now, like buffering and like you can stop it whenever you want, and you can go on your phone and stuff. And I feel like I can't really be trusted. And the other thing is like I like the big screen because my eyesight's bloody shocking, and I'm sat in my bed and I can't bloody see like the characters. Like when we were watching the films, I had to keep getting forward to go read what they were writing down. So yeah, I think it's definitely good to be back. But hopefully it doesn't mean I'm just going to go see everything. I think I saw a trailer for The Father, with
We're doing that on the podcast.
with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looked quite good. It looked a bit like from his perspective, which I quite liked. So there's a few films that I was like, "Ooh, that looks quite good." There's a few shockers as well, and a few proposed films that I can't wait to not see. But yeah, it's definitely good to be back.
Gonna queue up to not see it. Is that surfs up reference there? Yeah. Well, what I've learned from this weekend, I think it seems like Odie. I thought Odeon Lux was like a level above Cineworld. I feel like what I've learned from this weekend is like Cineworld and Odeon Lux are on the same level, and Odeon normal is just below. That's what I've learned, and that's why their prices are like that. I was just looking online at like comments and stuff, and when they're just like, oh yeah, my limitless card hasn't worked for 2 weeks, and when I try to phone up, no one's answering. And all these kind of like complaints, I've kind of realized, yeah, Odeon just don't care. They care about the Luxes. They're like normal Odeons. They're just like, yeah, well, fuck it. Just put half the price of a Cineworld, and we'll roll from there. It's fine. That's been my big takeaway from my first Odeon experience for 3 years since Black Panther. I think it's either Black Panther or Greatest Showman. It was a similar time, early 2018. But Mason, you didn't go back to the cinema. You're busy getting a degree. How is that fun? I don't know.
It's been a bit painful, to be fair. When I've been hearing you guys have been going, I'm like, I wish I had 2 hours in my day to dedicate to just being able to go to the cinema. But I'm gonna feel sorry for myself, and I don't. Thing is, I mean, I finish my degree next week, so my aim is after that to then jump on the bandwagon and actually start watching films again. Because I mean, like what me and you, Leon, had unlimited cards for like must have been near like 3 years, or maybe you didn't pay for it for 3 years, but like we still went very regularly. We still went very regularly, for like a 3-year period. So it's been last film I saw at the cinema was Saint Maud in, was it October time or something? So yeah, I haven't been in a very long time. So I reckon sometime next week, the cinema will see me again.
But you have an hour for this podcast, and let's get into our first new section on the podcast, our little head-to-head thing. So yeah, let's crack on with that. Okay, so a head-to-head thing that we're going to do to try and basically just try like frame the discussion so it doesn't go wildly off on tangents. It's kind of give a bit of structure to get the conversation moving. So we're doing Sound of Metal against Whiplash this week as two drumming movies, although Sound of Metal, not a lot of drumming, it's more the stuff after the drumming. Anyway, Sound of Metal is kind of more similar to a Quiet Place or Quiet Place 2 to the sound design and stuff. But yeah, two drumming movies in a sense. So yeah, Sound of Metal. A heavy metal drummer's life is thrown into freefall when he begins to lose his hearing. That came out. I think it came out in America last year, maybe, but definitely came out in this country this year. Then you got Whiplash, which was 2014, roughly. A promising young drummer enrolls at a cutthroat music conservatory. Is that the right word? that's in the synopsis, but it's conservative. I thought conservatory was just like a thing in your house, but yeah. Whereas dreams of greatness are mentored by an instructor who will stop at nothing to realize a student's potential. So let's start with Sound of Metal. Just kind of give your first impressions. Go to Ross. What's your? We watched this in the build up to the Oscars. Obviously, Sound of Metal. I think it won one Oscar probably for sound. I don't think it won anything else. Nominated for Best Actor, Best Picture, all of that. Yeah, what were your first impressions of Sound of Metal then? And maybe has your opinion changed over the last couple months or so?
No, not really. Like I watched it, in the build up to the Oscars. I haven't actually watched it since then. But I say like this. I think what you notice about it is how good the sound design is and how it kind of switches to his perspective a lot. What did I watch recently where they do that? What did we watch where they switch to a deaf person and they're deaf? The Quiet Place. Yeah, what the hell? Yeah, it does that kind of thing as well, where like from his perspective, you can't. He's like, I can hear. Like it sounds, yeah, and it's it's really like that kind of sound design I really like, and that's like really noticeable within the film. I think out of all the performances this week as well,
Ross. These are just first impressions. We've got the categories.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
First impressions.
No, yeah.
What do you think of the film?
What you notice about.
Then we'll move on. All right.
Oh, sorry. I'm so used to the old format. I need to get used to this. All right. What you notice about it? First impressions is how incredible the sound design is. I think that's like, you can see why that won because it's incredible. Like how you notice it's from his perspective and whatnot. That's my first impression, and also, think he's acting. What's his name?
Riz
Ahmed's acting. I think those are what I notice about this film. Like, but both incredible, and that's kind of what. This was one of my favorite films from the Oscars. I think this, Another Round, and The Father were like my favorite films in the Oscars, and that's kind of what puts us above the others in my mind. So those are my first impressions.
Riz Ahmed, born in Wembley, big up. May, you would have watched it for the first time this week. What do you think of Sound of Metal? A unique film, I think.
Definitely. I wish I'd watched it in the cinema. That's probably my only real qualm I had with myself. Because it's one of those things I was like trying to do several things at the same time. Because obviously, you know what it's like, Mason, being a busy student, like not being able to spare 2 hours. So I was trying to do several other stuff while watching the film. And for a film that's mostly in silence, because I like how it's all from mostly from his perspective. There wasn't much sense in the way it kind of switched from his perspective to just general like normal sound. I didn't really like that. I think Quiet Place 2 did a better job of that, switching between, because it almost seemed like a logical step when things happen in A Quiet Place 2 to switch to the girl's, spoilers, she's deaf, point of view. But yeah, I liked it was a slower change of pace, a less stressful film, which is quite good because I think I was quite traumatized after watching Quiet Place 2, because some things are scary. And yeah, the level of acting is just insane, and you can really see like how it all works together, and you can just see how it's been like written with intent. I think if I was watching it in the cinema, I probably would have been a little bit disappointed in that I kind of knew it was coming to its end because I was checking my phone and checking how long was left. So I knew things were going to wrap things up, and there wasn't going to be as such like an event at the end that changed anything. But it's more of like his own personal realization, which I think is better, that it shows the character's realization rather than any event that happens. I would like a kind of like little, I don't know, bit at the end that tells me where he went. If it's like a true story, and at the end it goes, David made it to basketball school or whatever. That's what I would like. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it, to be fair, and a lot more than I thought it would. I think I'm now getting older to the point I start enjoying films that are just talking, or even like films like this are just deaf people doing sign language with no subtitles. I don't know. I'm starting to enjoy things like that.
You talk about that clip with like the black people with that song called Hope plays, where it's like,
yeah.
Hopeful. Yes, I am. Yeah, David made it to basketball camp. Jerome got shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He never
Yeah.
made it out of college. He never made it out of the streets or whatever, whatever the hell it is.
Mason, I know you when you watched it for the first time, you watched it with your loud projector bellowing in your ear, kind of disrupted the sound design. Did you get to rewatch it in a more suitable environment or no?
Yeah, I watched it on my laptop this time. It was basically a different experience. Like I said, the first time it was just a constant fan in my ear. Could not even like appreciate any of the editing or like any of the sound. Basically, I was kind of just like, oh, like the maddest bit is like when he starts to lose his hearing near the beginning. I couldn't hear that like when I first watched it. I was just like, I don't know what's going on. Why is he acting so weird? And then when he like runs outside and everything like that, I was like, I just don't get it. And then until he's like, I've gone deaf. I was like, oh, shame. But like the slow like loss of hearing, or when he's playing the drums and he loses it entirely, went over me the first time. So yeah, basically, I feel like I unlocked like another level of this film. But like what Matt was saying about going to cinema, I feel like it's like half and half of this film. I think when you have like the really horrible noises, like when he's walking through the streets, when he's had the implant, that'd be really good in the cinema. But say like the end scene, or when you hear pure silence, I don't think that would be good in the cinema, because then all you hear is people like crunching on popcorn, and that'd be very jarring. Like, I feel like that's the only benefit of watching this at home, is that I can actually get silence. Whereas in the cinema, hearing people like munching away, that'd really like end any emotion in the scene, basically.
I don't know if people, I don't know, because like with Quiet Place, like the first one, people actually stayed silent. That was the like massive selling point of that film. It actually forced people to just not do anything, like even like their popcorn, they just kind of just stunned into silence. And if even Quiet Place 2, it was mostly the same. Like there's more loud stuff going on in that film, but even for the quiet moments, people were actually quite considerate. Then I watched
I'll probably agree with Mason, because like when it got to like certain parts in The Quiet Place too, when I was watching it, people sound like the back row, and it's meant to be like really like pivotally emotional, and I just hear like someone giggling. So it's just like it's not funny. Like you can tell you're getting old and getting annoyed at people. It's just like certain moments like that could break it up, I think, a little bit.
So you're saying Hatfield residents are more considerate than Swansea people?
Definitely.
That's surprising.
Yeah,
You wouldn't have thought it, would you? Actually, when I was in the cinema watching it, there was only like 2 people behind me, and that was it. So it was all right.
Oh, that's lucky.
Yeah.
Conjuring was a bit different. But I can't. That's kind of fine. It's like whatever. People like the Conjuring movies are more like of an event. People have been to cinema in a while. You want to just be like, oh my god, I'm scared. So I kind of respect that. It's not like an amazing film. I don't care as much if there's noise going on. But yeah, with Sound of Metal, I think there's kind of like 3 elements to make it stand out. It's like the Riz Ahmed performance, the sound design, and then this like general feeling of showing us like a different community and how they exist and how they don't feel like they're handicapped. They're just living their lives. They're enjoying themselves. They don't want your pity. That's kind of the like big like takeaway. It's like you don't need it's just patronizing to be like, oh, you're deaf. Oh no. They're just like, oh well, this is the cards we've been dealt. We're still happy. We have friends. We're living our lives. Like it's actually okay. That was kind of that's why there's more like there's quite an uplifting feeling by the end, where it could be, this film could easily be like a kind of Oscar baity. Oh, he's losing his hearing. It's depressing, demoralizing. You'll just be gutted for him the whole time, and by the end, you'll just come out feeling like, oh, wow, life is kind of a bit shit, isn't it? But no, there's kind of an uplifting feeling because of that sense of community. So yeah, I mean, we're experimenting still, but I feel like how I'm going to do it is we'll talk about Whiplash, first impressions, and then go through the categories and kind of compare that way. I feel like that's like, we're experimenting. Maybe we'll find a better way to do it in future, but right now that's what we're going to do. So Whiplash, so obviously not as much of a recent release, so would have had to rewatch it in the last couple of weeks. Matty, when did you first see Whiplash, and what are your feelings on it now?
I probably saw Whiplash maybe at least 3 years ago, because I remember it was in a year off when we started actually like dissecting the top 250 list. I remember it was on there, and that was the only reason I watched it. But I feel like it doesn't really come close to these films, because I feel like it just goes in a different direction. I know it's like a film that's mainly based on sound, but I feel like it's just much more like more of a display of like a character, more like J.K. Simmons. I feel like he's the most important person in that film, to be honest. I assume I'm talking about the right film, aren't I? Whiplash. Yeah, cool. Yeah, good. I don't know. That film's just funny because it's just crazy. Like it's just insane because the dude's like, I can't tell if he's clinically insane or gets a point because it goes through that cycle around and round again until you get to the end of the film and you can't tell, yeah, he pushed people too far, or nah, he did it for a reason because it works. But it's also like, dude needs therapy at the end of it, and I'm pretty sure he should go to prison. Yeah, what do you think about that? Like kind of that stance.
That he should go to prison.
Yeah, like I don't know if that's more what I took away from the film. That just how fucking crazy. Well, that J.K. Simmons deserves like I don't think he's won an Oscar, has he?
He won an Oscar for this film.
Then yes, he should get an Oscar. Very good. My point has just been proven on me. Yeah, okay, yeah, fair enough.
I mean, yeah, he probably should be in prison, but yeah, I guess we could talk about that. Like, it is a weird one. I feel like you just can't understand unless you're this talented and you're in this kind of profession. It's like hard to understand the dedication it requires and how far you need to be pushed. Like, yeah, it's kind of like a lot of this film, you kind of feel like you're in the mind of a crazy person. It's like, why would you do this just to be a good drummer? Like, you don't want any friends or any kind of social life. You like you break up with your girlfriend, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's hard to understand that if you're not one of those people. Mason, what do you think of Whiplash and that kind of theme of him just committing himself completely to his talent and nothing else, basically?
Yeah, like the scene when he breaks up with his girlfriend just feels like a joke. It's just very strange. And he's like, that's exactly what I mean. She's like, you're a dick. And she's just like cries and leaves. And it's like, even though I was confused, I kind of felt like her. I was like, I don't get it. And like I said, I don't think any of us have those jobs where we're that committed to where we'd just be like, yeah, sweet, we'll just completely rip everything off. I almost felt like the people at the table when they're like, they just don't really understand his success. I was kind of just like, okay. And even when he was getting annoyed, I was like, I'm backing you a bit, but at the same time, it's like, okay, like to me, I'm sat at that table like, it's just a school. I don't get what's so amazing about that school. I don't get why you're sacrificing everything. I don't get why you're being such like an arsehole. Like, just play the drums. It's fun. Like,
Mason, it really sounds like you're going through a breakup there, to be honest. It sounds like you're really like invested in this guy and he's just like dropped you. I'm sorry for your
exam
loss.
season's it's hitting me differently.
Ross, thoughts on Whiplash? When did you first see it?
Early this year, I think. And like it's one of them films where like it's like such a memorable performance from J.K. Simmons. Like that means it's good in most cases. I don't know. Yeah, in most cases when you remember something so well, that means it's that good that you remember it so well. And I think that's what you get with this film from J.K. Simmons. And like it's just bits like where he's like, it's like, am I going too fast or am I dragging? And it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and he just slaps him every time. And you just remember that, like, because earlier in that scene, he tries to like, lob a cymbal at his head. Like that scene's just insane. It's like, so am I speeding or dragging? Dragging. I'm dragging. And it's like, yeah.
So you do know the difference.
Yeah, that I really like that scene. It's like one of them things you kind of because you feel like you're sitting in the room just kind of with it. Like, you know how there's just like a whole orchestra there. You feel like you're part of that orchestra, just kind of sitting there like, shit.
I feel like with that scene as well, because no one reacts to how fucking crazy JK is because everyone knows that's what he's like and no one wants to look at him. You're kind of in the room. I can't remember the main actor's name. What's his name?
Miles Teller.
Yeah, you're in the room with him and you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, it's going to make you, it makes you like, because you don't see that in normal day life, someone acting like that. So when you're watching the film, even if you're just on your phone and then someone throws a symbol across the room and then there's that silence, you're up on your phone, you're just looking like, what the fuck is going on? So there's that tension that carries really well. And I think all of these films, maybe The Sound of Metal less, that really, when there's a loud noise and then all of a sudden the tension is like on a knife edge. And I think A Quiet Place does that perfectly.
Yeah, and I'll say as well, there's the end scene in Whiplash. I love that because obviously he leaves the band and you're like, what's he gonna do now? He meets J.K. Simmons in that bar and he's like, oh, you come join my band. And he obviously tries to fuck him over. You're like, oh shit. But that last scene is like insane, and like it makes you want to play the drums. Like I felt like after that I was like, I'm booking drum lessons for tomorrow. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I felt like I could like do anything after that scene. It's one of them films, but like you get the kind of films that do that and make you feel like that, but not in like a cringy way. And this like
I wonder
does
if
that.
I wonder if Whiplash was like, obviously they didn't make as much money. I wonder if it's like the Top Gun for drums. After Top Gun, everyone like signed up to the military. After this, everyone's just ringing up their local, I don't know, drum teacher. So you throw them out there, it's like, oh, you saw Whiplash, did you? Okay, yeah.
Can you throw a cymbal at my head, please?
Yeah, I feel like it's a film that definitely brings like a romanticism to becoming a musician. Musician. And
Does
it's
it?
like, I feel like definitely because then people who are like doing it like
Abusive romanticism.
exactly people who've like spent like literally their entire lives giving up so much just for music, and then someone who just watches this film and they go, yes, exactly, they get it, even though it's a film. And I don't know if it's even written by people who have gone through that kind of thing, but it's obviously inspired obviously by musicians, but people who just go, yes, that's the kind of feeling that music gives me, and that kind of like the push and the sacrifice and dedication, and that end scene kind of is like a relief pretty much. He just like does what he wants and it's all been kind of worth it and it's not been for nothing. So I feel like a lot of people will emphasize with that, I guess, put the work in.
And they also want to have a car crash and
Exactly.
hobble up to the drums, blood all over your hands. Yeah. Okay, let's transition into these categories then. See how this goes. So I got the first one, the performances, basically the acting. It's kind of, we talked about J.K. Simmons. I think he's probably the standout across this whole week in terms of how memorable that performance is. Obviously, he won the Oscar. Just the ability to just like destroy your self-esteem within half a second. He'll like build you up, like in that first session with Barstow and Neiman or whatever. He'll like build you up like just before they go in. It's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Just do your thing. Do you think it's all good? It's like, yeah, not quite my tempo. Just slowly building him up. He's thinking, yeah, I'm doing well. I've graduated into this class, and then he'll just fucking destroy you in an instant, and you have no idea where you are. You're struggling to even get your words out, and just the general his presence when he comes into any room. You even from it's the first. I forgot like the first scene is literally him. Like Mars Teller's at the drums, and then J.K. Simmons walks in and kind of instructs him to start playing a few bits, and he instantly carries that presence. I think he's a big plus for Whiplash, but I guess we haven't talked about. But no, this kind of, I guess it kind of says something that we're talking more about J.K. Simmons than Miles Teller. I think his performance is kind of fine. He's not like an amazing actor. He hasn't done much great stuff. He's in Top Gun Maverick, incidentally, later this year. But yeah, he hasn't done much great stuff outside of this. I think he's not like bad or anything, but I think he's kind of fire made. You think Riz Ahmed is probably the much better leading actor out of the two films this week?
Yeah, definitely, easily, I'd say. I think for Whiplash, like everyone else is just kind of like a passenger for the journey that J.K. Simmons takes everyone else on. Like everyone's there for J.K. Simmons. You kind of need a not so passive, I wouldn't say he's a passive lead, but you need someone who kind of isn't equally crazy. Because if you have two crazy people, then it doesn't like they kind of cancel each other out. You need someone who will react almost rationally to J.K. Simmons to make him look like absolutely crazy. And I think Riz Ahmed, I think he's a very, very solid actor. And I mean, seen him in things like Four Lions, and then to this, it's like still like it's subtle acting, which is good because you can tell they're different characters, they're different people. But it's still like there's still like a hint of him in there, if that makes any sense. I think every time J.K. Simmons steps on screen, he's a completely different person. Like looking at him in Juno, he's the nicest person ever, and I genuinely want him as my dad. And then I look at him in Whiplash, and I'm like fucking like scared. I'm scared that a person like that could exist. Do you know what I mean?
So you want
Anyone
J.K.
got
Simmons
Roy
to be your
Westcott's
dad?
number? Anyone got Roy Westcott's number? I'm going to bring him now.
I think
No,
so.
you know what I mean. I feel like I don't know. J.K. Simmons just seemed like a nice person in Juno, and then everything else, he just encapsulates his role completely and doesn't like hold back. If that makes any sense.
J. Jameson.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want pictures of Spider-Man. He'll get
Yeah.
them. He'll get them. He commands that kind of power.
And you also got in Sound of Metal, another good supporting performance there. Not quite as memorable as J.K. Simmons, but Paul Raci. It's either Raci or Raici, I'm not sure. But I think he's another really strong one. Mason, did you enjoy his performance? I thought his kind of commitment to helping out his people and building up this community. And I think probably the best scene is when he asked Riz Ahmed to leave after he has the surgery done. He's kind of like, we can't accept you coming in here when you're trying to kind of remove this, or like you're trying to solve, well, essentially trying to solve the problem of your hearing, where we don't view it as a problem, and he has to convey that emotion without completely going over the edge and crying. I think he does well to like kind of withhold that. Did you think his performance was a good supporting one?
Yeah, I think it's like you said, I think you have Riz Ahmed who's a bit more kind of out there with his performance, and then the other guys just a lot more kind of relaxed. And I think, like I said, that scene that's almost the one hoping to get like an Oscar nomination or something from it, because like I said, I think he really does portray that although Riz Ahmed up to that point has really become like integrated into the society, like within like the deaf community that he's kind of like living in, he then just kind of just betrays them entirely, and he's like, "I done the deed," and then like I think he's just their response. It's just really effective because, like you said, he doesn't have to go crazy and like shout. He can portray like disappointment through being very calm and relaxed, and you're on his side kind of in that scene, especially. But like you said, yeah, I think his performance was, I think it was like surprisingly good to where there's no key scene really where you'd be like, oh yeah, he done this, but he didn't have to do anything outrageous. It was just kind of like, I'm going to be a level-headed guy throughout this whole film, but you're going to remember me, basically.
So where are we going with this? Who's got the better performances of these two films? You got J.K. Simmons, probably the best performance overall. Then you got in Sound of Metal, you got two really good performances. Olivia Cook's pretty good as well. There's not much else outside of the two main guys in Whiplash. Where do we fall, Ross? What do you think?
I think overall you have to put it for Whiplash, just because I think, yeah, looking at performances, you look at Sound of Metal, Riz Ahmed and Paul Ratio. How the fuck you say his name? I called him Raki before this, so. And then Whiplash, you got Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons. But like, J.K. Simmons is like levels above anyone in most films, to be fair, just in this film. And then, like, below that, you got the two Sound of Metal guys, and you've got Miles Teller isn't bad in Whiplash. He's just kind of, it's not a memorable performance though. Like, he does the job well, but I don't think he's meant to be normal and level-headed, and he's just meant to be like a normal guy who's just like dedicated. Then J.K. Simmons does like the crazy stuff, and it might drag his performance down a bit, like the way we see it, just because of that. But I think overall, Sound of Metal, just because Riz Ahmed and Paul Reishi, just because they're both very like, I said earlier how good Riz Ahmed is, and Paul Raki, I'm gonna say it different every time. They're both like quite normal people, but they're both very different at the same time. And I think that's quite a hard thing to do within films, and kind of they portray their emotions through the way they act and through trying to be calm and whatnot. And Riz Ahmed, just like with this frustration, that's like he can't like let out properly because everyone else around him is so calm, and he can't just be like let himself loose properly within this like very calm and secluded society. And I think, yes, that has to go to Sound of Metal for overall the best, because like the girlfriend, I can't remember her name, but she's not bad in it. There's a few other people in the cast as well. That no one's bad. Nothing stands out as bad. And Whiplash is kind of just about Balto and J.K. Simmons. There's not really anyone else in there that has like a proper like big role. So I think, yeah, overall performances, Sound of Metal wins that one.
Mason, where you going in one phrase, one word?
Yeah, I agree.
May?
In one word?
Yeah.
Why one word?
Because we're moving on to the next category because we spent like 20 minutes already.
Fuming. Whiplash.
I'm going Sound of Metal.
Fuming.
That takes one. Story. It's got the better story. I think Sound of Metal is like the overall, the way the story moves isn't like amazing. It's more about the themes rather than the actual like narrative and like things driving, like going scene to scene. You're like, oh, you're like Whiplash, you're more like on the edge of your seat, scene to scene. Where Sound of Metal is more about the deaf community and the sound design and everything like that. So yeah, where do you fall in the story? Let's start with May.
I don't know. I feel the story in Sound of Metal was slow, but I like that it was slow because it really gave him time to kind of like delve into what he was trying to deal with, and because the film isn't about really what happens, it's about how he deals with it. So I like that about it. But in terms of like it being an exciting story, I think Whiplash just trumps it. But it's not trying to be an exciting story, so that's where it kind of like you kind of come like to blows, as Peter would say. It doesn't really make. It's not really a fair comparison. I think in terms of like the character development, I prefer the character development in Sound of Metal easily because it develops as a story and it all moves nicely together. But I'd rather watch Whiplash again, if that makes any sense.
Another thing I like about Sound of Metal in terms of the story is like, because this seems like it would be an unfortunate thing to happen for him, which obviously to an extent it is, like losing your hearing when you're a musician. But then it kind of acts as a catalyst for something good to happen because he was an addict beforehand. And this process, like this healing process, has allowed him to kind of overcome that addiction and become a more stable person by the end. So that's another part of the story that I like. Mason, where do you think this award should go to when it's category?
I think you want to go with Whiplash just because it actually finishes, like the story ends. Because obviously, Sound of Metal, it's just kind of quite abrupt in a sense. But like you said, if we're looking at the actual entire film itself, Whiplash just feels like a couple weeks, whereas Sound of Metal feels like a very long time. And like Matty said, it's slow, but I honestly I don't think it is. Like he loses his hearing, and it seems very quick when the way he like goes from having to learn how to be deaf, like that's his like target on the board, like in the film, to then next thing he's like kind of teaching drumming to the kids, and they can like feel the vibrations and stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of like you said, there's a lot of development, and I think you really do see his character grow, and then he's then described as acting like an addict when he gets like he tries to get his hearing back and stuff. So I really do feel like you see a big kind of progression that kind of goes like up and down with him. So yeah, no, I think it's definitely got to be Sound of Metal again.
Ross, where do you fall on this?
Yeah, I'd say Sound of Metal just because, yeah, Sound of Metal's more of like a character development film, and you actually see Riz Ahmed's go on like a journey, like the whole film, where he's there learning how to be deaf and he's focusing on how to be deaf, but he's also so focused on getting this implant. Then I think the ending is because they both got really satisfying endings, but this one's they're both satisfying in two very different ways. Where Sound of Metal's satisfying is like he just takes his earplug out and for like I don't know how long it is, but like a minute of silence, and I like it's silence that you enjoy, and you just sitting him just like looking at the birds, not tweeting, and it's just like it's satisfying in that sense. But Sound of Metal's like that ending is crazy, and but I think yeah, as like just because Sound of Metal has like character development story and just focuses like because there's not much character development within Whiplash, really. It's just too like yeah, but then because yeah, Sound of Metal has a better story. I'll go for that.
I'll also go for Sound of Metal. Let's rattle through this next one because it's not tremendous amount. The kind of visual style of the film is quite a broad thing, but we're not getting like too fastidious with all these categories. Kind of just how the film looks. Sound of Metal is not too much like distinct in the way it looks. Whiplash has got like a nice, slick, modern look to it, I think. And I like the movements of the camera on the drums and everything like that, and the claustrophobic way it gets up in on the instruments and on the people's faces. Even things like the music studio, like the brown walls with like the dimmed lighting. I just like the way that kind of stuff works. So it's a pretty easy one for me in terms of Whiplash. Like, it's not, both films aren't as reliant on the kind of visual impact as they are to the sound, which we'll get onto. But yeah, Mason, where do you go with this one?
Yeah, I'm 100% Whiplash, to be honest. I really love like the editing style and everything like that, where it's just zooming in straight on each instrument that's playing. And I think it kind of helps you appreciate the layers of the sound in the film as well, because it shows you directly what you should be kind of listening to and what you're hearing. And I think that builds tension. And yeah, like you said, to me, this one's probably like the easiest. It's just straightforward Whiplash, really.
May?
What do you mean?
Which one?
I don't
Visual
know.
style, how the film looks. Which one do you think looks better?
Oh, I see. Yeah, I'd say Whiplash. It seems more cinematic and more dramatic, and I feel like Sound of Metal is kind of like it's very just subtle cinema. I wouldn't say budget, but it just feels like they put all the money into other parts and then just kind of left a simple approach to the visuals.
Yeah, it's just different. It's just different type of film, really. It's kind of hard to compare. But yeah, Whiplash just has that more slick feel to it. Ross, what about you? Did I ask you already? Did I ask you about this? No.
No, you haven't yet. No, yeah, I think it's the same. Like, Sound of Metal's just kind of aesthetically and like cinematography. It's how do you'd expect it to be. Like, there's nothing special in a sense. But Whiplash, yeah, like it's quite dark at some points, and I like that. And like when he's in the room practicing by himself, getting stressed out, the camera's all up in his face and like up close in his hands, like bleeding and stuff. And yeah, that it just kind of has that edge in that sense. So yeah, I think definitely Whiplash.
Okay, Whiplash takes that one. Let's do tone. We have a unique category at the end of each one, which is obviously going to be sound this week. So let's try to save a few minutes for that. So let's rattle through tone. I feel like probably edge towards Sound of Metal just about. But I think Whiplash is what I like about it is how it almost feels like an action movie at times, and with like a bit of the psychological battle going to the heart of it, like almost like a sports film, but just action in terms of the way the instruments move and the pulsating feel throughout. And like I said before, like yeah, you're basically in the mind of this crazy person who's so dedicated to his craft. So that frantic nature of the film is appealing. But I think Sound of Metal, just in terms of again, it's all linked to the sound design in terms of how it makes you immerse you in his kind of psyche. And it almost feels kind of like ethereal the way there's no sound going on and everything like that. So yeah, it's a tough one, Matt. Where do you think, in terms of the tone of the two films, what one kind of appeals to you more?
I definitely say the faster tone of Whiplash is better. I don't know. It feels like it's more going somewhere, and it feels like it's more final in its ending. Whereas the tone is more of like an acceptance in the Sound of Metal. But I always find that feels a bit more like I don't know. It just feels a bit more unfulfilling that he's accepted, but I don't know what he's going to do now. Like he's accepted his position, but he's still got the same problems. If that makes any sense. So I prefer like the tone of like the finality of Whiplash.
Mason, in one word.
Yeah, Whiplash.
Did I ask Ross? No. Seems like this happens every time. Did I ask Ross? Go on, Ross.
It's yeah. So like, Sound of Metal is just kind of like relaxed throughout, and I think it's very like grounded down vibe. But I like Whiplash how when he's drumming, it's so fast paced and upbeat, but then like between those scenes, it's a bit slower, and it kind of switches nicely between those paces. So I think tone pace it like I like Whiplash because of the way it's. I really like Sound of Metal how it's like ground down, but I think Whiplash just because it does have some really exciting scenes will edge that for me.
You've convinced me. I'll go with Whiplash. Level it up at 2-2. The deciding set. It's the unique category. Obviously, sound is the big thing for both of these films. Got a musical film in Whiplash, and then the kind of immersive, very specifically designed sound for Sound of Metal to convey his hearing issues, whether that be like just his hearing completely going, but then that kind of abrasive, like screechy sound after he has the surgery done, which is like especially that scene when his girlfriend and her dad are doing that song, and it's kind of it's a nice moment between dad and daughter, and then it cuts to his face. At first it's like this is a normal sound at first, and gradually start hearing that screeching. You feel his pain and understand. Yeah, he knows that he's made a mistake. Mason, which film has the best sound design for you?
Yeah, I think Sound of Metal is just like superior. Like Ross was saying, the change of like the perspective of sound is just really effective in it, and it almost makes you feel like your hearing's going as well at some points where it'll go from like complete noise just to dead silence, and you're like, oh, shame, like what the hell? Like it kind of plays like with your with your hearing at the same time, and yeah, I just really like the style of going from like say like pure silence just into you hearing a noise at the table, but then you also can change to the perspective of someone else who has slight hearing, and there's just different layers to the sound, and it makes you really appreciate that sound mixing and sound editing, which sometimes can just kind of go straight over your head. And I think really Whiplash is kind of just like drums. Obviously, it's really sick and it is cool. And like you said, you have layers of like jazz and building up on that. But at the end of the day, I think this one's just, I think Sound of Metal is just so much more like technical and so much more like evolved and developed.
Yes, Wick. I don't know. Obviously, I have no idea how these people do their jobs, but like, I feel like Whiplash might even be harder to do. But then Sound of Metal was just so unique and so integral to like the story of the film. Do you think that gives it the edge over Whiplash in terms of the sound?
Yeah, I feel like. Wait, who are you talking to?
You.
Me. You.
Yeah.
I feel like definitely Whiplash doesn't have as much as a canvas to paint on with the amount of sounds they have to display. Like Sound of Metal has all this like this entire like canvas of things, and especially like that how they portray him not being able to hear properly through a device that almost works. I feel like that's like something you've never heard before, and you can really like hear his pain at the end where he's just struggling to hear, like when he's just sat on the bench, and then the silence after that. I feel like that just like encapsulates the film really well.
Ross, in a very short sentence or one word, what do you think this should go?
Yeah, it's got to be Sound of Metal, really, just because of the way, I think the way it uses silence. So when there is noise, there's like that clunky noise, and then there's him like the normal noise, and then the silence at the end and stuff. Yeah, it's Sound of Metal.
So Sound of Metal wins 3-2, last minute winner. What does that mean? No one knows, but we've done it anyway in longer than was anticipated. But that was good. That was a new way to try to do it. For it was provoked some more interesting discussions. Yeah, as a first try, that was solid. So yeah, can move on to our next little bit. So we're ready to have some fun. It's fun. We're gonna have some fun.
Let's have some fun.
Yeah, play a little game. Still trying to think of better ideas for games, but yeah, when we have time, it's like a few minutes. I'm trying to think of some little movie things to do to spice it up, make it a bit more interactive over here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna list some actors, and you need to tell me what film this is the cast list for.
Okay.
So I'll start with the more obscure members of the cast and gradually work my way inwards till we get to the stars. Yeah, whoever can figure out the film. I'll do 3 of these. Whoever can figure out the film, just chime in and say your answer.
Cool.
That's what we're gonna do. Here we go.
How many guesses do we have?
No guesses, just
Keep going.
Yeah, and if you don't get it by the time I get to the stars, then tense. Then yeah, just revoke your cinema fan card or whatever. So yeah, everyone ready? Everyone.
Yeah, man, I'm ready.
Yeah, sick. So the first film, David Harbour,
Black Widow.
Anne Hathaway.
Oh, Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, he's done it! Oh my days.
Oh man.
Two like
David Harbour's in there.
scenes. Okay, Mason's wanted to get out of here quick as possible, so he's coming
Number
in.
one.
Second film, Angela Bassett, Alec Baldwin, Vanessa Kirby.
The Departed.
No.
Yeah.
Rebecca Ferguson, Ving Rhames,
Mission Impossible 6.
yeah, it's 6. Yeah.
Oh, man. What the hell?
See, he's coming again. Not as quick, but he's done it again. 2-0.
Catch up.
All right, last one. Is Mason going to
catch
complete? Mason going to complete a whitewash. Now, I reckon my prediction is Matty will get it. Okay, here we go. Eli Roth.
Inglourious Bastard.
He's
He's done it. He's done it.
Oh, fuck.
Boom.
I was
Boom.
close.
Knocked out of the fucking park.
I was waiting for you to say more because from Eli Roth, I was like, it's gonna be Tarantino.
Yeah.
Good guess, mate.
That's why I hate play.
So May got 2. I mean, May got 2. Mason got 2.
You fucking did
May
it.
May
got
wins.
2.
Well
May
done.
got 1. Ross finishes
Another
this
one I
week.
can get, so I can get a point.
Say that again.
Do another one I can get, so I can get a point.
That's long. That requires
Ross.
going to an IMDb and getting another cast list. So Ross, you take the L this week. That's if you get none, you have that L trophy for the week.
Okay.
But yeah,
Have we
so
got one?
you got to win it back next time. Might be the same game, might be something different. I have a few ideas. So yeah, that was fun, wasn't it?
That was
Yeah.
Good,
I
good
have-
times.
I like that.
And on that note, it's goodbye to Mason, who hasn't seen A Quiet Place 2, which is our main review this week. So see him in the next episode.
Cheers,
Bye,
guys.
Mason.
Say bye. Bye.
Bye,
Bye
mate.
to the fans. See you later, guys. Bye.
Mate's just put a mask. Just mask emoji thing on his face.
Well, we agree, Mason. You got this. Honestly.
God, I hate that guy.
Mate, he's. Why'd you invite him on it?
You know, I've just realised I didn't put a synopsis underneath A Quiet Place 2. Fuck
See
it.
it-
You know what I'm gonna do? You know what I'm gonna do? Because we're getting professional.
You
I'm
going in?
gonna play a clip. I'm gonna play part of the trailer. Gonna add that in.
Oh my god.
When to the podcast. So it'll be like, yeah. So right now,
Professional.
so we're doing A Quiet Place 2, which is our main review. We're doing every episode now. We're doing a new film. It's
Yeah.
our
Yeah,
closing review. So here's the trailer.
What happened?
A bomb, I think. I don't know why he came all the way up here. There's nothing left.
There are people out there. People worth saving.
Most people had finally given up hope.
Wasn't that a great trailer?
That was
mate, that was sick.
scared
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
really good.
yeah,
So
I'm
Quiet
out.
Place 2, guys, following up to the hit movie that was A Quiet Place from, I think it's 3 years ago now, which is a bit mad. Obviously, this was meant to come out. This was like the first big film that got pushed back. I think they had their premiere, then 2 days later, that's when pandemic hit and we kind of had to withdraw it from all the screens that it was meant to go out into, but it's finally out now. So what was your first impressions of A Quiet Place 2, mate?
I really liked it. I think it's better than the first one in that the first one's like nice in its simplicity, but then once that simplicity is over, it's nice to have like more moving parts, more different characters, you know, like what other people doing, that kind of thing. And I think this one does it really well. Like it shows all the different it shows a big spectrum of how different people are coping or not coping. And it really steps up in like how cruel things are getting in the world, like with the bear trap on the kid. Like the kid's like, he's the one who's the most scared of stuff happening to anyone. And he's the one that steps into a bear trap, which is like, it's kind of crazy. And I really like Cillian Murphy in it as well. That's my thoughts in like in a box. We'll unpack it as we go. Go on, Ross. What do you think?
Yeah, I think first impressions, I couldn't tell whether I like this because the first one's like obviously a lot smaller scale. This one's kind of they go out into the world and do stuff, and I think that transitioned really nicely. And so it's kind of hard to say which one I like better at the moment. I feel like I need to do another rewatch, but yeah, first impressions, it like the sound design is just because the first one kind of, as we spoke about the sound of metal, the way it switches between like the deafness and being able to hear stuff and perspectives and whatnot, it does that so nicely. I feel like it's really smooth in this film, probably maybe even more smooth than Sound of Metal. Yeah, I think that's what I notice about like the most. And yeah, that's my first impressions really.
I definitely agree that the transition in perspective is the best, and it beats Sound of Metal because Sound of Metal is like really like juttery. You don't really know why it's switching. I think my favorite bit in The Quiet Place is obviously the first scene. It's just an absolute like chaos and how it nicely builds into this. Because obviously you know it's going to happen because you know everything's going to go like southward, and you don't know if it's going to happen in like, you don't know if the film's going to go on for 40 minutes before anything bad happens, but you don't know if it's going to happen straight away. And that's kind of like one of the best like ideas of suspense. 'Cause I know like the guy who basically invented like modern horror. He said like you can't just have a bomb go off halfway through. What you do, you set a timer for 5 minutes and say this bomb's going to go off, and you put it under the table, and you just start talking for 5 minutes, and no one's listening to the conversation. You're just scared the bomb's going to go off, and that's like the whole of this intro. You're just scared something's going to happen because you know it's going to happen, and then when it finally just jumps in out of nowhere, it's still. Oh, I mean, I bit my own lip in the cinema. I was so scared. Is really good, I think.
Yeah, the opening is the highlight for
Yeah,
me. Like you were wondering like what they were gonna do, how much of the old world they were gonna show. And I think that's the good thing about this one. They don't do too much. They don't go overboard with like, yeah, this is exactly what happened day by day. This gives you day one. Here's how it in a small town. This is how the alien invasion kind of started. And I was like, it's really impressive. Like, it's still mad that it's John Krasinski who's doing this. Like, it's just out of nowhere. He directed like a comedy film, I think in like 2009, which I haven't seen. I probably never watched. It's not like anything. Doesn't look like it was anything special. Then he just comes out of nowhere and just does two like really good horror / action films. And like just the whole way that opening bit is shot, like with the kind of explosion in the air. It's like War of the Worlds. That's the vibes I got. Like he's always like a little Spielberg the way he's approaching his films.
Yeah,
and then the transition as well from that opening to the present day, like with the kid and the kid's holding his, I think he's holding his little brother, the one who dies in the first film. Then it transitions to the present day where he's holding the new baby. Even that was just like nicely slick. And then here we go, we're off. Quiet Place Part 2. It's actually a part 2. It's not. It's like it really emphasizes that. It's like, yeah, we're leading on from the first one right in here. So I thought that worked well. Ross, do you have something to say on that?
Yeah, so I think going into this film, I was excited to see like, okay, John Krasinski is going to be behind the camera for this one. What can he do when he's like fully directing? Because I feel like it must be harder to direct for like in front of the camera when you can't see what's going on the camera, and you can't like leave the backstage staff, but then you got to like to focus on your acting as well. Like the fact he did that in the first film and pulled that off so well is incredible. But the fact that I think, yeah, that's why I was so excited for this one to see like what can he do when he's got like full control now. Let's see what's going on. And I think because Cillian Murphy just kind of like took his place as like the father figure in this film, I think, and I think maybe the subtleness needed to be a bit more there rather than be like, oh, Cillian Murphy's like her new dad now, pretty much. I think it kind of, there wasn't enough subtlety in that kind of transition, the way that he was like just so obviously like in your face, the new father figure. I think
I agree.
They could have done that a bit better, but at the same time, it's kind of because she's like a teenager, or I don't know how old she's meant to be or how old she actually is. Because she's that age, she kind of like needs to be led by someone. She does go out by herself, and then the mum's like, "Go get her," and he maybe like has to take that place. I don't know. I think that's the only bit where I was like, but I wasn't even. I was like, I didn't really think about it.
I mean, I kind of like to an extent kind of agree, but I still think the point of this film, like the kids take on more responsibility, and they're the ones like leading the charge. They've kind of like learned from their dad in the first film, and now like she's trying to, obviously the ending it's kind of the same as the first one in terms of like using the hearing device, but on like another bigger scale, putting it onto that radio station. So like she's leading the charge, and that's I think that worked as well, having like two stories. So she's leading the charge on that side, then you got the kid with his busted foot trying to keep them alive down there, and he's the one who takes out the alien in the end. So I thought that worked well, like the kids taking on that more responsibility. It's also really funny how much older they look, obviously, because kids age so ridiculously quick. So it's funny how they look, like especially the boy, how much older he looks, especially when it's meant to be like in the past he looks older, than present day he still looks older. Yeah, that's funny. Matt, do you have something?
I kind of agree with Ross. Like when I saw the cast list and I saw Cillian Murphy just steps up, it almost looks like, you know, in a film when like someone leaves the cast because they're too big and they just replace him with another character to fill all the shoes exactly. That was like, it's a bit of a shame they didn't like let Emily Blunt just carry on as like the new figure and like let her character step up by herself. Like not as in like it was like sexist that they needed the film to be successful, they needed a male lead, but it almost felt like that. But then I liked how he just didn't want, he didn't want to step up to be that father figure. And he was just basically telling him to leave and die the whole time. And then he kind of did, but he acknowledges that he's not the person. and that she's more of like her own father than he could be, which is nice. Yeah, that's what I want to say. Like replying to Ross's thing. Although my main qualm is that in the first film, when it's all like watery, um, and like when the basement fills up full of water, and I don't know what they're called. Then that big listening creature, it just slinks into the water so smoothly and just like glides. It looks like a natural swimmer. And now in this one, can't swim at all, and it just drowns straight away. That I didn't really like.
It was kind of weird because even like a human can go in the water for like a couple minutes and then they like I'm starting to drown now.
Yeah.
That was kind of like as soon as that scene where they're trying to get on the boat or whatever, as soon as he gets in the water, he's like, fuck, shit. Like, yeah. It doesn't really make sense. There's kind of there's something there that I don't know. I feel like if like yeah, that could be there as well, like just because it's only like an hour and a half film. It's a short film. They can afford to have that kind of like couple minutes where there's like a tense scene of like the alien like underwater, like trying to get him or something, like for a couple minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Before then, it starts like drowning. They could have done something like that.
I think what they showed is they tried to show it like exercises caution with water because it's not dumb. It knows it can't go in water. And they might have tried to show it just fell in, and the other one didn't. And also the one that was on the boat and it was just drifting. They knew that was going to go to that island. I don't know how they didn't know that was going to happen. But at least as soon as it happened, I was like, well, that's going to turn up there at some point. And then maybe they want you to think that the whole time because then that's the whole dread. It's the whole thing again. You know it's happening, so it makes it even more tense, I guess.
I feel like this could be like continuity. Obviously, they weren't planning to do a sequel. Then I know John Krasinski didn't do the screenplay for the first one. He did for this one. So it's kind of like adding his details could create some stuff that's a bit mad. It didn't really affect my viewing, but yeah, I can't really argue against those points. But it's just funny how every film just has to have a sequel now if it's remotely successful. That's interesting. Go to the cinema, and what are your options? You got Peter Rabbit 2, The Conjuring 3, which is like the 8th film in that universe. Then you got Cruella, which is a prequel origin story for 101 Dalmatians. Then you got Quiet Place 2. It's literally all sequels, prequels, or whatever. It's just an interesting state there.
This one looks like it's set up a third as well.
Yeah. So did you guys have any issue before seeing the film? Did you have any like, oh, why are they doing a sequel? That was a really original idea. That was a mostly contained story. Didn't need to add to it. Did you have any issues before? Like obviously seeing the film now, it's good. Kind of take it, leave it. They're going to make a third one. I think they're doing a spin-off as well. Before when they announced they're doing a sequel, it was like, oh, here we go again. They have to do it because it was successful. They have to do a sequel when there's not actually a story like ready to go.
I feel like with this, it was more of like a excitement. There's some things I think that, and obviously some things are like, oh, why have they done that? Like, I don't know. Well, like when they brought out Doctor Sleep, I was like, really? Doctor Sleep ends up being quite good, to be fair. But it's just like that initial thought of like, you don't need to do that. It's obviously just like a money thing. But like, maybe I think with this one, my first thought was like, oh, John Krasinski, that's his first film. And he's probably like, this is his first time he can direct and like do what he wants. And he kind of been let out into this world where he's like a successful director now. And he has this idea and he wants to carry it on. That's the kind of way I thought of this one. Because obviously with like, The Conjuring and whatnot, it's like, well, they're obviously there just because The Conjuring's probably like, it's like the McDonald's of like horror. It's just like there and you just eat, everyone goes to eat it. Do you know what I mean?
That's actually a good metaphor.
Yeah, it's just cheap and like mass produced and it's just always there every night. I feel like The Quiet Place it's a treat, you know?
Burger King over there and like
it's big Kahuna burgers. That's what
yeah. But then you get A Quiet Place, which is like, oh, we're going to like a gourmet restaurant now and eating
gourmet
like,
shit. Yeah.
That's how I feel that. Gourmet.
I think when they said the sequel was coming out, I was like, "Ooh, I hope the story is there." And I was quite confident that there'd be. I just wanted to see more because it was so good. And now I watch it, I'm like even more glad that it happened, and I really want a third one to be there because I'm picturing now I want them to weaponize this like frequency thing. I just want the like whatever's left of the army. I think that'd be really interesting to see because the army have definitely survived somehow. They must have done. I don't know how, and I kind of want to see what like other continents are doing. I don't want to lose that small scale plot, which works really well, but I do want to see like just more, just more of this universe.
Yeah, Krasinski was on BBC on Friday, and he was talking about the plans to making the sequel. Like he had no intention of making a sequel, obviously, and the studio obviously because it made like 300 million on a 10 million budget or whatever, the first film. So they're like, yeah, you gotta do a sequel. And he was like, he had like a idea for a story, and they were like, okay, you just drop some notes down for the story, and then yeah, we'll get maybe I don't know if it'll be the same writers from the first film or whoever will get them to put a screenplay down, and we'll find a director or whatever. So he's like, yeah, I'll put my notes down for a story, and then he carries on just writing notes, and in the end he's like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna write a screenplay and direct it and do everything again. I'm invested in this world. So yeah, so obviously he didn't want to do it initially, but I think he found a way to expand this world in a satisfying way. I don't think it's as better than the first one, like May. I feel like it kind of just met like the expectations of the first film, like satisfyingly, without like massively improving on it. Just kind of like, yeah, has still had the effective sound design, a bit more action, the split stories to create that ending, everything like that. So yeah, that's kind of where I was like. The only bit I don't like was the kind of weird, like savage people. It felt like they're kind of like zombified. Even the girl, like when she like pounces on it, if she looked like a demon,
It looks
it
like
kind
the
of
ring.
felt a bit like a different movie. Like obviously you can understand that people might devolve in that way if you're not speaking for, is that was like nearly 2 years or that sort of a year and a half or something at that point, and being chased by aliens constantly. But like in terms of just the tone of the film in that sequence just didn't really fit the rest of the film for me. It was just, yeah, it was a bit of an odd one. Yeah, don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think the same. It kind of didn't fit the tone of the film just because, yeah, it is quite like small scale and everyone's like trying to survive and stuff. It just kind of didn't really make sense because they pull like how have they been surviving in like a year and a half of them like kidnapping and like ransacking people or whatever. Like surely within that time someone would have been like, oh, I made some kind of noise and like then like trying to kill people. Like they've done very well to stay alive doing this stuff in this like year and a half. I don't know. I didn't really like that bit either because it was kind of like, yeah, the girl looks like the well bit from the ring, like the thing, the girl like with her hair down, whatever. It's kind of like that, and then obviously Cillian Murphy goes up to her and gets like a knife to his throat, and the girl like gets her hearing aid taken, they kidnap them and stuff, and yeah, it doesn't fit, I don't think. But I think they just needed a way to get like the monsters over, the aliens over, just so then the aliens could go to the island with them. They needed like a way to get them over, and that was probably like, oh, someone tries to kidnap them. Yeah, it's probably the easiest thing to think of, really.
I think I liked it because it kind of shows that not everyone out there is like a really nice person, And I think in this film, so many people are shown to be like so selfless and so strong and so powerful, to kind of like help everyone else. Like John Krasinski is kind of like he's just like the ultimate nice guy, and like he sacrificed himself for his kids. Now his kids will like almost easily do the same. And then Cillian Murphy's like, oh, he's not a bad person. He's just scared. And it's nice to see people who would take complete advantage of the world going to shit and turn it in like everyone else's loss into their gain. Because I think that definitely would happen, but it doesn't really make sense how they would like capture people and they might just go, well, if I'm going to die, I'm just going to let out a little scream and we're all going to die anyway. Like, that's probably more likely what would happen. So it's a little less plausible, but I liked how it showed like every spectrum of person that could have survived. Yeah, and also I was going to say about the main. I like how John Krasinski does a big, fat, juicy like intro sequence. Like the last one was a really subtle intro sequence with a tease of the monster that just rips the kid away, and then this one it's just like an all-out brawl. And I like the dynamic scenes that he does where it kind of follows the camera and he's like, he just his like really fast run, from his like Jack Ryan series or whatever he does. Follows it through and there's just so many moving parts and like people get swiped this way, people get swiped that way, and I think like the skill it takes to organize something like that and make it look good and like the choreography and everything just works really, really well, like blending the special effects and the stunts and everything. I think he really done the fans justice by wanting to see what it was like when these first things hit, and now it's like I feel pretty good. Like I feel like that's pretty cool. I'm done with now watching how it first happens. I just want to see where it goes. So I think he set it up well for leading on to more.
I wouldn't mind like however many films they make. I wouldn't mind like always just starting with a flashback. I wouldn't mind that. Just like a 5 to 10 minute scene of like a significant day in the time before, like in the bit, or even like after the aliens have landed, like maybe like day 4 or anything like they want to depict. Not still not overloading it, but just starting the film like that to kind of get you in the mood. So yeah, I wouldn't mind that. But start to wind our discussion down at the end of this review, the end of this new format for the Corona Cinema podcast. Final thoughts on A Quiet Place 2, Ross?
Yeah, I think because I think the first thought that you come to is like, oh, I think that was better or worse than the first one. But yeah, as you said, I think it lives up well to the expectations of the first one and kind of sits on par with that. And I think John Krasinski, like as you say, he didn't even really want to like think about doing a sequel at first, but the fact he did it and pulled it off in this way, very, very impressive. And it's a quality film, and yes, just as good as the first one. And I think a lot of like reviewers have said a lot of good things about this. So yeah, good job, John.
May?
Yeah, all very positive, and I agree with Ross. Although I do see a bit of danger with possibly the third or maybe the fourth one, in that the question is going to be asked, where did these things come from? Because obviously I don't think they flew down like in their spaceship, because they don't look smart enough to have technology or wear clothes or have spaceships, you know. So I'm guessing either they came on some like meteorite, but it doesn't really make sense that they just survived on something like that. So I think if it's going to go somewhere logical, it might be like an alien's looking to invade Earth, so they just sent down all of the like these mad. They're basically dogs to them. These things. They just sent them down as a plague to wipe out all the humans, and now they're the next thing that's gonna come down, and they know how to like either tame them or kill them really easily. So I wonder if they're gonna ever tackle the origin of these things, and that's when I feel like it could get a bit too big scale and a bit too unbelievable. Because right now it really tackles a small plot really well. I'd like it.
Yeah, it's literally about these like 4 or 5 characters, isn't it? And I think moving away from that might be a mistake if they did go that route of like an origin story of the aliens and like explain how they got there. It might go a bit of like a weird route if they try that. But I know what you mean. I could see that that could happen, but that I feel like that would only happen if John Krasinski was like, you have the story, I'm not directing it. I don't think he would do that, because it seems like he's kept it small scale for a reason. They would have given him like millions of budget. Like he could have put like millions of like hundreds of characters in there, which he kind of did with that island, but it was still about them. There's like one extra kind of speaking role in there, and that was about it. But yeah, if they did an origin story of these aliens, that could go down the bad, like kind of about how Alien has like how many films has Alien got now? Like 6, 7, is it?
Yeah, it's quite a few, and then all like the combinations, like Alien vs Predator.
Yeah, but it's not like it's not necessary, and I think people kind of, you watch Aliens, maybe Prometheus, and you're like, that'll do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Overall, I think as A Quiet Place 2 is a good film to go back to cinemas with, get that experience with the sound, a bit of action, everything that you need. So, okay, that wraps it up for episode 1 of season 2, the Corona Cinema podcast, at Corona Cinema on Instagram, at Leon Wait 98 on Twitter. I'm gonna start posting on Twitter again more. Try to be more. Try to promote it a different way as well. Try to refine everything about the podcast. Promote it on Instagram, be on Twitter. Start actually post. Well, I have these Facebook groups where I just post a link. I might actually like post a message with the link. Be like, guys, look, we've changed it. Check it out.
Season 2.
All that. Yeah, all that stuff. So that's coming on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, Stitcher, Podbean, all those podcast apps. So do I want to say what we're doing next week? Do I even know? Yeah, I do know. Do I know? Are we doing? Is it another round? No.
No, it's 2007 Oscar films, isn't it?
No, because I've changed. Wait, let's get this up right now. I changed it to like kind of align with the main review. So the new film in cinema. Okay. So the Father's coming out. Surely, yeah. So it's 2007 Best Picture. So the Father obviously nominated for Best Picture. That's coming out in cinemas probably like a week or so. So we're doing There'll Be Blood and Michael Clayton in the little head-to-head bit. Also did No Country for Old Men in season 1. the podcast. So 2 more of probably the best Oscars year, the 21st century. So yeah, join us for that next episode. Until then, go well.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Why do you suppose I just hurled a chair at your head, Neiman?
I don't know.
Sure you do.
The tempo?
Were you rushing or were you dragging?
I don't know.
Start counting.
5, 6,
In
7.
4, damn it! Look at me!
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3.
Now, was I rushing or was I dragging?
I don't know.
Count again.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Rushing or dragging?
Rushing.
So you do know the difference.